Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff, Mosher, Adam Caplan here for an Inside the Birds that is presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It is the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. Adam, welcome back. Andrew did a great job pinch hitting for you on the night that the schedule came out, but we are not done talking about it. In fact, we started a series last year, two-part series that people really like. So we're going to do it again, where we break up the schedule into the two parts, first half and second half, and we kind of go through schematically, coaching wise, what stands out about the games and what the Eagles, who also are different from a coaching and scheme
Right.
standpoint, how that's going to match up against their opponents. It's obviously, Adam, a big week for the Eagles because OTAs begin today. And they'll be out getting their work in. So we'll have more on that as the week goes by and into. I mean, it just starts today, and they do very little at the start of it. But welcome back.
Yeah. I was on my only vacation I really take in the Outer Banks, so that was fun. Little rain soaked late in the week, but that's been the story in 2024 is the rain. And I'm glad. Look, I'm glad we got football going on here. Yeah, the schedules are out. Really interesting. And being on the league's call with for the national media. I think when the hell was it? Was it Thursday? And it's so interesting to hear how they decide who gets primetime games. Like Mike North, who's, by the way, who oversees the scheduling from Philly, he talked about how teams play themselves into it. Last year, they look at kind of how the league is, and they see who are the up and coming teams, and they make a decision. Last year, their darling was the Lions. The Lions got, and they nailed it. Remember, they should have gone to the Super Bowl. They blew that huge lead against the Niners. And this is an amazing stat. So their team to back this year is the Texans. Texans got 0 primetime games last year and 4 this year. The Texans played 16 straight 1:00 games last season. 16.
That's amazing.
What a
That is
joke.
the ultimate slap in the face from the
Exactly.
They deserve it.
You know what that is? That tells you what the league thinks of you. Not very much last year, and now they're a darling. They got a quarterback.
It's like when a free agent signs a 1-year contract and you thought they were a name, but they only get a 1-year deal. And you and I say, well, this is what the league thinks of that for that guy.
Right.
It's not what what it used to be.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's funny. You know, my Boston Scott dartboard analogy that I would say, I felt like this year, the primetime one was like they had a wheel to spin. That's what I mean. It's the wheel, right? And that 75% of the wheel was all Kansas City Chiefs. And then the other 25% was Jets, Texans, Eagles, and like Cowboys. And then, they're just, because every time the Kansas City Chiefs are basically never playing at 1:00. I mean,
it's crazy. I saw that. And by the way, the Jets got 6 primetime games, and Mike North did say, hey, they kind of owed us one because of what happened. Rodgers got hurt within the first 4 plays.
Yep.
But what he did say is the league partners, they wanted the Jets. I get it. The Jets are they're a New York-based team, biggest media market in the country. Team hasn't been very good, but a lot of that's because they haven't had the quarterback. Now they got the quarterback back, and boy, they're backing once again. Okay, he's 40 years old now. We'll see what happens, but pretty interesting. And what the Eagles got 5 now. I'm including obviously week 1, which is in prime time.
So I wanted to ask you this about the Eagles, since you obviously weren't with us on the night that the schedule broke. So I talk about this pretty frequently, probably every year on this podcast, where there's this very predictable cycle of sort of Eagle expectation coming off of a disappointing year. It's the team sucks in February, right? Especially when you lose 5 out of 6 or 6 out of 7. The fans are very disappointed. You want the coach fired or you want changes made, then changes are made, right? And then there are free agent signings, and then there's a draft, and fans and media too, but like typically like the free agent signings because they're usually names you think are going to upgrade the club. And this year, especially Saquon Barkley, CJ Gardner-Johnson, right? I mean, Devin White, whether or not you like them or not, I mean, they're names and people kind of cling to them. Then the draft, which fans of every NFL team typically like the draft, right? Because you heard the names, you've been excited about them. Sometimes you get a rare case like a couple of years ago when the fans wanted Justin Jefferson. The Eagles took Jalen Reagor, and that was bad from the start. But in general, fans typically like the draft, so that by the time you get to now, May or June, your feelings about the team when you last saw them almost seem to have gone by, and now you're back to being optimistic about the team because they made all these moves. It doesn't matter that some of these moves are probably not going to work out, or some players that you expect to play well are not going to play as well next year, right? But that never matters. So I asked this because I was listening to some sports talk radio this week, and everybody was doing the whole win-loss schedule thing.
Yeah, of course.
And I wasn't surprised because, like I said, this happens every year. But man, there was a lot of, oh, this sounds like a 13, 14 win team, and schedule is light, and we should beat all these teams because, we're not afraid of that quarterback. We're not afraid of that quarterback. And I always wonder, like, do people place themselves in the other? Like, do you think anybody's scared of the Eagles as much? Like, especially the way they finished last year, right? I'm not saying the Eagles aren't good. I'm just saying, like, you have to apply the same logic and thinking. But where are you right now? Like, are you on this? Oh yeah, this team looks like a 13 or 14 win team. That was a little ambitious for me.
I don't feel as good as I did 2 years ago when I thought they could win 14 games, and
Yes, you did.
14-3, maybe something like that.
Yeah, you had them at 13 and 14. I remember you talked about their floor being no less than 12 and their ceiling being 14. You nailed it. I was not as on board as you, but you nailed it.
But this year there's some flaws. Depth at certain positions. The depth is certainly better than it was last season. There's no doubt overall in the football team, but there's some questions. We've talked about D tackle for 2 months now. If somebody gets hurt, you're going with guys who haven't really played or very much. Although I'm very intrigued by Marlon Tuipulotu. When we were researching a little bit of his background, we found out that he actually played fairly well 2 years ago. And then he suffered a pretty bad injury. He didn't come back from. He stayed on IR and he didn't come back. So now it's just basically all systems go. As you said, they've had the draft. If you look at their schedule, and this is pretty big for me when I evaluate, I do my own strength of schedule. I don't base it on last year's teams. You can't, because there's so much change. You base it on how they finish, but you also have to take in head coaching changes, obviously overall, scheme changes on offensive, defense, and personnel changes. Everything changes. Nothing stays the same. So the Eagles, yes, they're playing one elite team. They're playing Baltimore. They're not playing Buffalo. They're not playing Kansas City. They're not playing Houston. We could debate whether they're an elite team, but they're pretty good. They're not playing the Niners.
I think the Bengals with Burrow can be an elite team. They're pretty good.
You know what?
They've never been about like star power on defense, but yet they're always with Lou Anarumo, at least in the last 3 years, put out a pretty good defense.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting about their team? We'll get to their matchup, I believe, on this show. In fact, I think we're going to be covering that game. That'll be one of the last couple games we cover. Their total, the odds makers must agree with you, because they've got them at 10.5, and I thought that was way too high. With
Really?
Burrow coming off his injury.
I mean, they won 9, right? With Jake Browning starting.
I know, who played great out of the blue. Who is this guy? Right? But
yeah,
that's probably their logic, the odds makers' logic, that okay, look, they were this competitive with a backup quarterback for a portion of the season. So we'll get to their game later in today's show. But overall, I'm so intrigued by this Eagles team. 2 new coordinators. Michael Clegg did a great job. Boy, we don't talk about him enough, the job that he did. And boy, fans want him fired after 22. They took this thing to the next level. We could look, if you really look at it, their punter and kicker are really good. Long snapper, really good. I know it's kind of funny to say long snapper. Yeah, long snapper. Coverage teams have really come a long way. Kickers, one of the top 2 or 3 in the NFL. Coverage teams, as I said, have been better. You really look at it, they do a lot of things well. They just don't have an elite roster on defense. Offensively, they sure as hell do. Yeah. Although everybody knows center and right guard is a big issue. That to me is part of why I'm not as bullish. I mean, it's obviously the roster isn't as good as 22, but it's you don't know till you get there. We're not going to know. There's some things we know. Jurgens has not played a lot of center in his career. Only did it for a couple years in Nebraska. So. And then you got the right guard issue. Now they're handing to Steen this time, but we'll see if he keeps it. So that's an issue. But this is going to be fun. There's a lot of unknown. You mentioned as we move forward here. OTA start this week. I get that it's not the mandatory camp, but this is the first time that the coaches could actually they talk about this term, get their hands on the players, means coach them. I'm looking forward just to see if what happens with this situation over the next these practices, and then once they get into the mandatory camp. Sort of who develop, what do the depth charts look like early on? I get it. You're not holding anything, but how things transpire here.
There you go. All right. So it sounds like you feel more like, I don't want to put a number, a 10 to 12 range is wins. Like that's 10, what they 11. Look like on paper.
Yeah.
I would agree with you on
Good
that one.
schedule though. Good schedule.
Good schedule. Yeah. Now it's to me, it's a swing schedule. We'll get into it. There are a couple of teams here that I think if they, like the Bengals we just mentioned, Packers, that if they start to really grow, like they can be sort of like what Houston was last year, where they can really take off and get really good quarterback play. And I still think Washington, as we'll talk about, is a great wild card. You just never know
All
what
right.
you're going to get. They make a lot of additions to their team.
They have. Yep.
All right. So let's direct everybody's attention to our website, insidethebirds.com. Andrew DeCecco doing a great job. He has already put out a story on some prime breakout candidates on defense this year. He had some interesting names for guys he expects to break out, and not just expect, but need to for the defense to succeed under Vic Fangio. He'll also be doing a story. He'll be at OTAs this week, so he's going to have coverage there. And there's another story he's going to be doing. Oh, the guys who are most under the microscope. That should be out today, coming into 2024 season. Who's under the microscope the
Ooh,
most for the Philadelphia Eagles?
I got like 4 of them, but
I was
anyway.
going to say it's not hard to think of them. There are a lot of decent ones. Also,
Number
some
90.
coaches. I don't know if he's throwing coaches in there, but I don't think he's writing coaches, but you can certainly add some to the mix, right? I mean, that would
the
be
head
fair.
coach.
Yeah, the head coach under the microscope, of
Yeah.
course. We had a great Ask ITB on Patreon last week. A lot of really good questions, great discussion with our community. Adam will do the Discord chat for our Patreon members again on Wednesday at 7:30. And you can catch us on Discord pretty much all the time. We're dropping some intel, having some discussions there. It's a really good part about Discord. There's no time set date where we have to drop any intel or just have a conversation with our great Patreon community. And you want to get in on that. It's patreon.com/insidethebirds. No one will take you inside the team more and faster than us, especially for our Patreon members. So patreon.com/insidethebirds. All right, we're going to start our schedule breakdown here. We'll go through the first 8 games in this pod, then there will be some repeats, obviously, from the division. So we'll just finish off the schedule in the next podcast, along with any news that transpires between now and then. Let's pause real quick to hear a word from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right. Before we get into the games, I remember when we did this last year, Adam. One of the cool things we did was talk about not just the schedule, right? And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go really inside schematically, coaching changes, personnel changes, what each team is now compared to what it was. Last year, if you remember, the first 5 games, it was all about a new play caller on either side of the ball. The Patriots had a new offensive play caller. The Vikings had Flores on defense. The Buccaneers had Dave Canales on offense. The Commanders had Eric Bieniemy. Your first 4 games, you were seeing entirely different type of scheme than what they had become used to. And then after the Rams, there was the Jets game and they had Hackett in there. So I see some similar theme this year, but not as drastic as last year, which started off immediately. So game 1, there is a scheme change for the Packers because they have a new defensive coordinator, which I think makes a lot of Packers fans very, very happy.
Oh yeah.
Not happy with the job that Joe Barry?
Yeah, they wanted him out of there. Cosell and I were talking, Greg and I were talking about this a year ago. He said to me, what are you hearing on their scheme? I'm like, a lot of teams say they're too finesse. They're very talented. They underachieve, and the fans wanted him out. And it just, although they won the playoff game where they smoked the Cowpokes, really embarrassed them. People were like, oh wow, and Jair Alexander, like who people were wondering if he was going to be on the team after his stupid thing that he did. That is one of the all-time stories, folks. Look up Jair Alexander and coin toss and see what you get rather than going into it. It's one of the most bizarre stories I've ever seen. Yeah. Although I heard his excuse, but they weren't buying it. But he played so well in the playoff game. But nevertheless, Jeff Hafley, who strangely decided to come back to the NFL, he was the Boston College head coach. Now, some people think it's because of NIL. Like he knew it's hard to recruit and all that. You lose your players, but whatever the case may be, he doesn't have to worry about recruiting as a defense coordinator. Now his roots are in a 43 defense, so it sounds like they're going to run a 43, which is a complete departure, and they have not run a 43 in a long time. So here's the challenge for them. We'll get to their offense in a minute. So those guys are stand-up pass rushers like Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Enigbare, who's a pretty good backup pass rusher. Lucas Van Ness, by the way, was brought in for the 34 front. Now he probably will play some defensive tackle. So you know how we said this over the years. It's always good when you're facing a team in week one, or you're facing a team with a new scheme, particularly defensively. You want to see them early on before they really get it. Well, this is probably a time to want to face them because again, they're running a new scheme.
Yeah, and it should be for newcomers, right? It should be a little bit of a simpler scheme. The 4-3 doesn't have a whole lot of moving part elements typically to it. I mean, Jim Johnson used to have a joker, right? A guy who stand up, move around. But in general, it's the Jim Schwartz 4-3 we all think of is just wide 9, spread it out, and you're usually a cover 1, cover 3 on the back end, like a Gus Bradley is. Because you just don't. There's just not as much movement and stuff. Now you can do it, and we'll see if Jeff Hafley has some, bring some wrinkle to his 4-3. But you look at this defense that you're mentioning, Adam, they've got some good pass rushers. Rashawn Gary on the outside, Kenny Clark on the inside, Wyatt from Georgia, Preston Smith. They added in the draft 2 really good athletes at the position. Edgerrin Cooper, the middle linebacker, and Javon Bullard, the safety. And of course, they signed Xavier McKinney they outbid the Eagles to get Xavier McKinney. So just looking at the defensive personnel, and injuries shouldn't be an issue unless they have something in training camp. Pretty good defense.
It is. The only issue they have is really a corner where they're not real deep. Eric Stokes is a first round of 2021 who's been hurt a lot. So he's going to be expected to start. It's a big year for him. Jai Alexander is so gifted. He needs to get back to where he was. But you saw him close the season very well. We talked about the playoff game where he was amazing. 2 new safety with Javon Bullard and McKinney. But corner is where it's at. I mean, you want to spread them out. The Eagles have the ability this year because they're deeper at receiver. At least on paper, they're deeper at receiver. We'll see how they do. You want to spread these guys out, and you talked about their pass rush. Gary now is going to play with his hand down with Preston Smith. And Edgerrin Cooper, man, he's a stud. My favorite inside backer for this draft. I'm interested to see what they do because Quay Walker was playing inside before because they were running a 34 before with 2 inside backers. Now we have to see how they line them up, but Walker should be the weak side linebacker. And Isaiah McDuffie's there, who was coached by Hafley at Boston College, who's on a contract here. So overall, look, it's fascinating to see, as you said earlier here, how the defense is going to change because you got a new scheme and a new coordinator.
Right. Now let's look sides at the offense. This is a really fascinating offense. Obviously, this is an offense. There's a stat here that's really intriguing me. I researched this, Adam, just to show you how well that Jordan Love played and how much the offense elevated once Jordan Love really got his feet settled, because it was not a great start for the Packers. In fact, if you look at their first 5 or 6 games, they were not among the league's better offenses. They were among the league's worst. I mean, there were only a couple of times where they got over like 24 points per game. But if you look at their 10 highest scores totals from last year, 8 of them came October or later. So mid-October, and most of them were in November and December. So they were clearly a much better offensive team once Jordan Love got going and got his legs under him. And then he and his head coach, who's a good play caller, Matt LaFleur, they developed a good rapport. Matt LaFleur has proven himself to be a pretty good play caller, a guy off the West Coast tree, but also with some Shanahan style to it. And you add to that Josh Jacobs now instead of Aaron Jones, who's a guy who can catch the ball really well. He can run the ball really well. But the big thing is they got their no-name wide receiver crew to really make some plays for him.
It was an amazing year for Jordan Love, as you said. And here's what happened. He did not have a good training camp, as I understand it, very inconsistent. Up and down in the first half, some highs, some lows, to the point you're like, okay, I could see why they signed him to a very economical deal. And this is his first year as a starter. In fact, he only started 1 game. Everybody remembers the game against the Eagles when he came in at halftime for Rodgers. And the Eagles are playing deep zones because they were up big, and he looked good. But the bottom line is his second half was phenomenal. In fact, if you really want to know how great he was, go back to the Thanksgiving game. He was absolutely incredible
Mm-hmm.
at the Lions. They handled the Lions, and I was like, oh wow. In fact, how good was he overall though? He finished with 36 combined touchdowns, 32 passing, 4 rushing. His second half was phenomenal, and now he's trying to get a new deal, and he deserves a new deal. This kid has got, and you have to understand here, he played in a system in college at Utah State was completely different from this West Coast scheme that you're talking about, and he kind of had to be deprogrammed out of it. And it's one of the rare times it's actually good that he sat for his first 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
and he was so good. And this is the deepest pass target group in the National Football League. So what happened last season was, and it really does apply to this season because of the issues that they had a lot of injuries the Packers did at the wide receiver position, and when you can't get through things, you got to play whoever's on your football team when you're down there. They're the only team in the National Football League last season to not have a vested veteran at wide receiver, which got highly criticized by a lot of people who looked at it and said, "What is Gutekunst doing? They're GM. How do you not have any veterans for a young quarterback?" Well, guess what? Romeo Doubs is pretty good, 87. Jaden Reed was terrific, who's their slot receiver. He was the second rounder last season. Christian Watson got hurt once again with a hamstring problems. Dontavian Wicks came out of nowhere having to play as a
Mm-hmm.
fifth round rookie out of Virginia, did a really good job. And then Bo Melton, who they signed off Seattle's practice squad, he got forced into service and put up a couple big games. In fact, he kind of rescued them. And don't forget, they also drafted 2 tight ends, Luke Musgrave in the second, Kraft in the third. Musgrave's a pretty good athlete. So they are super deep. They'll spread the Eagles out. This is week 1. I don't think there's any doubt what they're going to do. But
Mm-hmm.
this is what they have to do. They've got the personnel to do it. Jordan Morgan, by the way, the first round pick, will play left tackle for them. Not the most talented offensive line, but they're really well coached, good scheme, and they don't beat themselves. You mentioned Josh Jacobs, who's on a 4-year deal, but it's really a series of 1-year deals because there's no guaranteed money past year 1. It's a typical Packer structure. It's totally team friendly. It's called pay as you go that our old friend Andrew Brandt put in decades ago, and they still do it.
Yeah. All right, good stuff. So to me, as we move on from them, the early week 1 matchup that you're looking at it from offense and defense with the Eagles versus team is on defense. Will they be able to stop Jordan Love with explosive plays, especially on 3rd down? Huge issue for the Eagles last year. And then on defense, I'm sorry, on offense for Eagles, right? Will their center and right guard, their new starters there, are they going to have trouble with that very good interior presence that the Packers can bring? Because like you said, Lucas Van Ness is going to play inside. Kenny Clark is a good inside player, Devontae Wyatt. And then, of course, you got Smith and Gary are on the edges because 4-3 teams usually don't blitz a whole lot. And the key last year, as the 49ers like to tell everybody, was getting that extra man pressure on one side of Jalen Hurts and forcing him to get out of the pocket early, right? Remember the 49ers said they set the blueprint on that blitz. So usually 4-3 teams don't blitz. We'll see what Jeff Hafley has under his story, if he's a blitz guy or not with a 4-3.
I was just going to say one thing, and I expect the Eagles, if they want to score, you got to throw the football and you got to go after Eric Stokes. And they're just not really deep at outside corner,
right?
And they have a really good return on Keyshawn Nixon, who's been there for a long time. So it's going to be a fun game. And the cool thing about this game being on Friday, though, boy, you really wish you would have been home. This would have been a great home field advantage for the Eagles, but it's going to be in Sao Paulo, Brazil. We don't know. We know the Packers fans travel well, so do the Eagles. Technically a home game for the Eagles, but they'll play Friday. They're going to get a lot of time off because remember that the second week, and we're going to get into that, is on a Monday night. So whatever happens, the coaches will be able to adjust because they're going to have a lot of time.
There you go. Good segue. Week 2, Monday night, Groundhog Day, Monday night versus Kirk Cousins for the 3rd straight year at the Link. Now, this is a team much like last year where you have everything new, head coach new, offensive coordinator new, defensive coordinator new. Let's start with the offense because obviously with Raheem Morris as the head coach, he tapped into the Shanahan tree there to bring in an offensive coordinator in Zach Robinson. It's going to be his first time calling plays. I think Zach Robinson is a former Texas Tech quarterback who played in the NFL, right?
7th rounder. In fact, who did I say? Oh yeah, Paul Gunther told me he was actually with him as a player with the Bengals.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah. So yeah, it's the McVay Shanahan tree. He coached for Sean McVay. He's never called plays before, but it's a West Coast offense. This West Coast offense, there was a time in the NFL where it wasn't doing well. Well, now it's doing really well. Like they're almost all of them are really doing really well.
Mhm.
You would think the league would adjust to it or stop these offenses, but it's still doing well. And now with they finally have someone who could really run at receiver with Darnell Mooney. He came over from Chicago, who will be their speed receiver. They made the trade for Rondell Moore, who's too small at 5'7". That was a overdrafted 5'7" player in the second round by the Cardinals, but he can run. He's a gadgety type player. Of course, Kyle Pitts. And the cool thing about Kyle Pitts is he's not coming off of an injury now. His knees is good. He had a meniscus problem 2 years ago, which unfortunately bled into last season. But I'm told he's perfectly fine. He's ready to go. Bijan Robinson. Now that Arthur Smith is not calling the plays, maybe he'll get the ball more. With the strangest of the play calling, but their skill position group is pretty good.
Yep.
And they've got 3 former first-round picks on the offensive line, plus Matthew Bergeron. I know they're really excited about. Was a second rounder last year at guard.
Yeah, they have an athletic offensive line. I mean, I think even Dahlman's a pretty good athlete for the position. So they're center. So you wonder if Zach Robinson from the Shanahan tree goes wide zone immediately, or if they run a little bit more inside. Just depends on, what they view as the strength of their offensive line, because the Rams were actually changed from wide zone to inside zone last year because that's the way their offensive line was built. So we'll see. But either way, as you mentioned, a lot of good weapons there on offense. So that'll be a big key for the Eagles defense. And on defense for the Falcons, who they've added a lot of guys, but they haven't been able to put it together. But now they've got Jimmy Lake. He was with Washington, right? He was their.
Yeah,
I think he was
coach.
Jimmy Lake is the guy that gets, I think, credited for all of those great defensive backs that came out of Washington, because I think he coached DBs there.
He's actually he was actually their head coach.
Right. Before he came head coach, though, I think he started off as DBs coach. I just know that his name always came up with the development of, like Marcus Peters and Trufant and Buda Baker. Like that was like a really good school for producing safeties and cornerbacks.
Yeah, in fact, he was one time the D coordinator. Before that, D-backs coach. He coached the NFL before that. He coached in the state of Washington. Man, he was in there at UW twice. He was at Eastern Washington, coach with the Lions, coach with the Buccaneers, Boise State, back to UW, as you mentioned, DB's coach, then coordinator, then became head coach, and then he was with the Rams last season as a assistant head coach. He was on defense though, and now he's with Raheem Morris. And good to see Raheem get a second chance. Who was too young when he was head coach, but he is really sharp. Big fan of his. I'm pulling for him. He's just a really smart guy who connects really well with his players, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he does here. Now, their defense under Ryan Nielsen last year overachieved. They are not very talented. When you really look at it, not a lot of pass rushers. They got Braylon Trice in the third round as more of a power rusher, sort of hybrid player. And I think that, from what I understand, they're supposed to keep the 34. Ebiketie, who was a second rounder 2 years ago out of Penn State. They're looking for, and remember, Grady Jarrett's come off an ACL injury, so they've got a lot of issues. It's AJ Terrell's a terrific corner.
Mm-hmm.
The opposite corner, they're going to work through it. Not very good there. In fact, I was stunned that they didn't draft anybody. I'm spreading this team out. I'm going after whoever's playing opposite AJ Terrell. They're really good at safety. Bates and Kid Helms. DeMarco Helms was a good story for them as a seventh rounder, or Richie Grant. They'll figure out who starts there, but I'm absolutely, if they could protect, the Eagles should be able to protect against this defense. I am going after that's the corner again, whoever plays opposite AJ Terrell.
Yeah, that's sort of the matchup that I think you can attack, but it also is the one that intrigues me a little bit more than the Packers one, because I expect this to be, like you said, a 5-2 front, a 3-4 type defense, the type of defense that's going to move around a little bit. With Raheem Morris has always done a good job with defenses, and these are the type of defenses that really came after Jalen Hurts last year. So obviously he's seen it a lot, but they've been effective against him. So we'll see how that one works. But certainly a formidable team now with Kirk Cousins at quarterback, with the weapons they have on offense, and with the coaching. Coaching makes a difference, and they have good coaches on defense, and they've been adding to the D. You're right, not a lot of pass rushers, but we shall see if scheme overcomes personnel there. As we head into week 3, ordinarily not me. I wouldn't say this is a worrisome game, but anytime it's in New Orleans, which is such a tough place to play, the loudest venue I've ever been in, bar none, in the NFL, the Superdome. But this is Adam. I believe there's no major changes here, right? Because Dennis Allen is still the head coach.
There is one.
Go ahead.
Clint Kubiak is the OC.
That's right. I forgot about that.
West Coast again. Here we go with the West Coast.
Yeah, so that'll be Clint Kubiak is a wide zone, typically, type of offensive coordinator. So you're gonna see a lot of stretch runs and attacking the perimeter. But who do they attack with? It's all about, is like Kamara still healthy and effective? I mean,
he did a good job in the past game. Caplan checked down Derek Carr, they did a bad contract. This is the last year fully guaranteed money, so they're kind of stuck with him. He didn't play well last season.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have some changes. Michael Thomas is cut. That he just could not stay healthy over the last 4 years, so they said goodbye to him. Watch number 22, Rashid Shaheed, who's been a great story. He is their 9-route runner. Olave is their intermediate receiver. He's phenomenal. A.T. Perry's a big possession receiver. Number 17, you'll see him. They probably will be more 12 personnel. In fact, I would bet the house on it with Juwan Johnson. He's a pretty good athlete, number 83. He signed an extension last year. And Foster Moreau, he's a highest-paid backup tight end in the NFL, overcoming his illness. Good for him. And, of course, the wild card is with Taysom Hill. You never know on the fake stuff inside the dome there. He's so explosive as a runner. By the way, $10 million he's being paid this season as this hybrid player. Wow.
Crazy. I did like their draft. I think Fuaga was a really needed addition for them at left tackle. No doubt about it. We'll get into their defense in a second. They drafted the corner, Kool-Aid McKinstry, in the second round. So I think that's important. But I just look at this team, like you said, captain check down with Carr. I don't know. I know they're having issues with their right tackle, Ryan Ramczyk, who's a good player when healthy. He's just not often healthy. And I think he's still battling an issue right now. And then there's like uncertainty about whether he's going to be able to play.
Yeah, he just turned 30 last month. The question is, when will he be ready? They're not willing to say he'll be ready for week 1. They've got an issue because Trevor Penning, their left tackle, got benched last season, so that necessitated the drafting of Fuaga, who could play right tackle, but for now it's going to be their left. McCoy's back with Ruiz in the interior. They're going to have a new left guard. So this is good for the Eagles, for sure. And Kamara is not the same player he once was. This is almost certain to be his last season with the team based on contract and age and injury history. He turns 29 in July. Been a great story as a third-round pick. But, they did draft Spencer Rattler, a quarterback who dropped. Boy, all the hype on him. He dropped to the 5th round.
Yeah, how about that? Defense, their coordinator is called by Dennis Allen, Joe Woods. Their coordinator, Darren Reesey, their special teams guy. He's kind of one of the more recognizable really good special teams coach. They're a mix. They're weird, Adam, because they've got these veterans who you think, like, can these guys still play? I mean, they have so many veterans who used to be good, and you want, like, Tyrann Mathieu is safety, Demario Davis, good linebacker, right? Their defensive end, who they've had for Cam Jordan for quite a while. They signed Chase Young. But at the same time, like, this team never does anything. So I can't sit here and say, you got Willie Gay. That was a good signing. And you got Demario Davis, good linebacker. Like, I expect him to be a decent defense, but I just don't, to me, scare me. They're just like the Saints,
Yeah, they're very inconsistent. You never know what you're going to get. Look, Lattimore, the problem with him last season was he got hurt, and they clearly were not as good. Paulson Adebo's been a nice story. You mentioned McKinstry. Alontae Taylor's their nickel. So they're going to be better. If everybody's healthy, they'll be better there. And Matthew, it's really interesting because when the Chiefs declined to offer him a deal, there was the tape, what we were told, did not look very good his last season with the Chiefs. Maybe explain why they didn't offer him a deal. He has just turned 32. You wonder, and I know he'll play inside. There's a bunch of things you can do with him. To me, it's a team, I don't want to say they've underachieved. They're not quite as good as the hype. And look, they signed Chase Young. Carl Granderson's been an amazing story as a former undrafted free agent. You mentioned Cam Jordan, who I was told still wants to play 2 more years. Those of us who are advanced age might remember his dad, Steve Jordan, the tight end for the Vikings.
Yep.
So
Cam Jordan's a good player. I mean, these guys, like I'm saying, like, Jordan's a good player. DeMar Davis has always been a good linebacker. Teron Matthews has always
he's
been a
great.
good safety.
Yeah.
But like at some point, it's like having 3 Brandon Grahams on your team. At some point, it's you get your age is going to catch up with you a little bit there.
Something
So
missing. I'm with you on this. So there's something missing. It's not quite there. They're not as good as they should be. They're not bad at all, but you would think they'd be better. But very winnable game. Derek Carr, well, before you get out here, why do we call him cap and check down? He is one of the most risk-averse quarterbacks I've ever seen. He's so gifted.
mhm.
He just will not drive the ball downfield. There was finger pointing within their offense last season. Now they have Clint Kubiak. This is an old school West Coast offense. That ball's got to be out on time.
Yeah.
See how he does with Clint Kubiak.
Yeah, I do think that fits his style. He wants to get rid of the ball.
Totally.
Yeah, so it could
He's willing to pull it. If he's willing to,
I don't think the Saints are going to be bad. I think they're going to be right in the middle of the pack. They can beat a good team. They can lose to a good team any day. So the fact that that's a home game favors them a little bit, but not scary to me. All right, week 4 at Tampa Bay. I love this matchup, man. I'm just loving the whole Tampa Bay Eagles history recently here because kind of take turns beating on each other a little bit. But obviously Tampa Bay got the best of them in the last one in the playoffs when the Eagles were just all discombobulated. Tampa Bay does have a new play caller, and to me this is the biggest. This is going to shape or frame how their season goes because Dave Canales did such a really good job getting Baker Mayfield to play within a certain script, right, and cater to his strengths. Will Liam Cohen, the new offensive coordinator who used to be with the Rams, then he's with the University of Kentucky, then he went back to Kentucky after the Rams. I wanted him to be Penn State's offensive coordinator when they fired Mike Yurcich, but here he lands back in the NFL, and he is another West Coast offense Shanahan-style guy.
Yeah, he was with Baker Mayfield 3 years ago, very briefly. Remember when Mayfield was claimed off waivers? Cohen was on their staff then.
Yep.
So at least the two know each other. You're right. It absolutely is a West Coast offense. They wanted to keep the same terminology and same system for Baker as he had under Canales. So we'll see what the relationship's going to be. Mike Evans is back. He'll be a Hall of Famer. What a story he's been. It was Jason Light's, I think Jason Light's first class in 2014. Graham Barton, their first round pick, will play center for them, which is interesting. You typically don't draft a center in round 1, but hey, that's what they're doing. The only issue there is Rachaad White's a terrific running back in terms of versatility and power. He's not fast at all. They don't have a lot of juice out of their backfield, and I know, as you said, Eagles face them in the playoffs, and they're certainly a different team. But it's just going to be it's going to be interesting to see kind of what the approach here is, because as you said, the Eagles lost to them and got handled in the playoffs, but you got the Eagles' new defensive scheme with Vic Fangio, the real Vic Fangio, not just running it. He's the one who's running it. So I'm fascinated to see what he's going to try to do to this defense to slow Evans. And by the way, Jalen McMillan probably will start opposite Mike Evans, and they want to keep Chris Godwin in the slot where he's very effective.
Yeah, didn't they have a little speedy guy who hurt the Eagles in the playoffs last year?
Trey Palmer, who made it's really odd. If you look at his yards per catch, you go, this guy can't be fast, but yet he was maybe the fastest receiver in the league in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have great hands. He was at LSU, transfer to Nebraska, and he was not on the same page with Mayfield. But if they could get on the same page, he's a deep threat who can make plays downfield. But Jalen McMillan, the other Washington receiver, actually, I guess there are 3 of them. He's got the best chance to start because they are not deep at receiver, Tampa. So I think, to me, he's got to start opposite Evans. I don't know if Trey Palmer's going to be able to beat out McMillan for that spot opposite Evans.
Yeah, how about Washington putting 3 wide receivers in the same draft, right? Jalen McMillan, Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, and of course Rome Odunze. That's pretty good production right there. There was one other kid who gave the Eagles some issues last year. I forget who it was. Was it Devin Tompkins? Somebody who caught a couple of passes and we're like, who is that guy? But either way, I'm concerned with the Mike Evans matchup because it wasn't just James Bradbury that Mike Evans was torching last year. Darius Slay was on the wrong end of a couple of Mike Evans catches. And in the first game, Mike Evans toasted both of them, but he dropped about 3 or 4 passes. That's the one in week 3. So I'm really concerned about that matchup, especially if Baker Mayfield and Liam Cohen are, on the same plane early on and the protection is good.
Yeah, so where they killed him last year is Cade Otton, their tight end, who I'm a big fan of. He's a possession tight end, but he got a lot of run after the catch stuff. Trey Palmer scored on that 56-yard catch where they decided not to tackle him. He got in the open space. So yeah, it wasn't good, but you could throw that out because you've just got a completely different look here with Fangio coming in here, just based on the way he coaches. Clint Hurtt is a D-line coach. You're expecting the discipline, folks, which was a disaster down the stretch. How could it not change? It's got to be way better.
Right. And K-Dot, you mentioned, I'm still concerned about that matchup because the Eagles changed coordinators left and right on defense over the years, and it seems like defending the tight end always is their bugaboo. So defensively, we talked about that. Offensively, we didn't talk about the Tampa Bay defense. They're good on defense, and they gave the Eagles a lot of problems. Now, in the first matchup that the Eagles won, Kalijah Kancey did not play because of a calf injury. So when you get Kalijah Kancey, Vita Vea on the field together, Joel Tryon-Shoyinka, and then of course they got that nice, emergence from their third-round pick, Yaya Diaby, who turned into a player. They're pretty good at linebacker. This is a good defense. Antoine Winfield at safety. Tyke Smith is a rookie that a lot of scouts liked out of Georgia, I believe it was. They got him in the third round. This is a formidable defense, Adam, and Todd Bowles is going to push those buttons.
Yeah, I met Kancey at the Super Bowl. He is small but unbelievably explosive. 6'1". He's an interesting guy. He could get after it with Vita Vea, who's phenomenal. They have a very young pass rusher group, edge group with Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. Diaby was really good as a rookie. Chris Braswell, the reason why I dropped to the second, he's kind of a late bloomer as an edge rusher. And Anthony Nelson has been there. He's on a second contract. He's been there for a while. And they brought in Randy Gregory for some experience. It's amazing. Every team signs this guy and they expect him to do something. He doesn't really do anything.
Right.
But he's 31 years old, been around a long time. Here's where you beat him. It's just another team not strong at corner. Remember, they traded Carlton Davis, who had a down year, who was their number one corner, traded him to Detroit. Jamel Dean was hurt last season quite a bit. Zion McCollum, who the Eagles loved for the 22 draft, probably would have drafted him if the circumstances would have happened. They're great at safety, but corner, they're not very good. They just don't have the depth, and I'm going after these corners.
And that's exactly why they pressure they pressure anyway because Todd Bowles is their coach, but that saves their corners and gives them the ability to make plays. And again, front seven, not a lot of changes. The only guy that's not there anymore is Shaq Barrett, but he was sort of on the decline anyway. This is a good front seven that could put a lot of pressure on a quarterback. All right, so that's the first 4 weeks. They can't lose or win in week 5 because that is the bye week. Allegedly, you can't lose or win. Let's take a quick break to hear a word from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right. If you happen to stop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam just sent you. You will get a great deal. Always love our friends at Sky Motor Cars. All right. We finish out the first half of the schedule. Week 6 is one of the rare first half home games, 1:00 for the Philadelphia Eagles, and that is against the Cleveland Browns. These are not the Cleveland Browns of the past. They're pretty good. They made the playoffs last year, even with Joe Flacco having to start for the last month. Joe is not there. Deshaun Watson back in. Who's their backup quarterback now, Adam? I forget. They signed
Jameis Winston. This is the strangest thing. They did not even make an offer to Flacco. They, as I understand it, they indicated at the combine they wanted to bring him back, and for some reason they didn't bring him back. And in fact, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who was the start of the season as their backup, he had some sort of injury he was dealing with. So they went out and not only signed Winston, they signed Snoop Huntley. So they clearly are not counting on Thompson-Robinson to contribute.
Right.
Or then he's on the roster. So they know Snoop Huntley, same division, coming over from the Ravens. Watson had major shoulder surgery, 2 different issues. So he's back. They're expecting him to be ready in some sort of form for training camp. We'll see. They're gonna have a philosophy change. They're gonna be way more 11 personnel. Why? Because they added Jerry Jeudy, who'll probably be their slot receiver. Elijah Moore will be their Z. Cooper's their X. Cooper's on a They got to extend Cooper's contract. Boy, what a story he's been. The Dallas Cowboys didn't want him. In fact, they came close to cutting him. Then the Browns jumped in. They saved the day. They made the trade. He's been a really good story. David Njoku, the Chief, he started off his career poorly, but he became one of their leaders. Really a two-way player, blocker, outstanding blocker. And now he's become a good pass catcher.
I'm a big fan
good
of David
offensive
Njoku.
What's that? Yeah.
I'm a big fan. He's an
good.
underrated tight end. Yeah.
Yep. The big issue, though, they have addition to Watson coming back is Nick Chubb coming off a major knee injury, devastating injury.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what to expect out of him, which is why they signed Deontay Foreman so they could run the football. Jerome Ford, good stories as Chubb's backup last season. He could catch the football. Naheem Hines should be the returner, but they've got good enough depth, and that was a smart move to sign Foreman, who's a good backup.
Yeah. So based on your knowledge of this team, is Stefanski still the play caller, or is he going to let Ken Dorsey, the new offensive coordinator, call the plays? I can't imagine that.
From what I understand is they have not decided who's going to call the plays. In fact, I remember when Alex Van Pelt was added, he was let go, is now with New England. When he brought Van Pelt in, I think he handed it over to him for a while.
Right.
So we'll see what he does here. But because of the addition of Judy, they're going to have to go with more 11 personnel. And you're going to learn early on about this because some of these teams could spread the Eagles out. You're going to learn a little bit more. Look, we expect Mitchell to start opposite Slay, but who's the third outside corner? Well, obviously we'll know coming into the season because training camp will tell us that. But how they deploy nickel, is it definitely going to be Maddox? How does he play? Is he healthy? C.J. Gardner-Johnson, is he healthy? Do they want to slide him inside? How do they use Cooper DeJean? Because the thing is, Eagles have such better depth now, which they didn't have last year. This will come in real handy with teams that could spread you out.
So this was the team that I thought last week when I heard, sports talk radio or people just analyzing. I think people slept on the Browns a little bit, and that's because Deshaun Watson's been hurt and they got lightning out of a bottle. I think they are talented enough. We'll get into their defense in a second. I think they're just talented enough overall to be a pretty good team if Deshaun Watson is just pretty good. If Deshaun Watson is even close to being above average again or really good, then I think this team can be a really good team, especially with their defense.
Yeah, in fact, the thing with Watson, he has not played good football since 2020, where he was elite, but the team was terrible. Their defense was not competitive with the Texans. And then, you know what happened off the field situation. They weren't going to let him play. And then he goes to the Browns. He was suspended for part of the season. He looked terrible. After the suspension was over, then you had last season. He was bad before he got hurt. He hasn't played good football in a long time, but as you said, and I agree with you. If he just plays above average, they've got a very good offense. Let's go over to their defense where they're playing the wide nine with Schwartzy. You know what they're getting. It's no secret. Myles Garrett played very well, but they think that Myles Garrett, he didn't put up the sack numbers, but he looked really good in it, and he was banged up. He had a shoulder problem. They're good with pass rushers. Jadarius Smith, who's in the twilight of his career, and Obo Okonkwo, who's there, is a really good sub-package rusher. They had Mike Hall as a defensive tackle in the draft in the second round. They didn't have very good depth there, and they needed to get younger there anyway. So I understand why they did that. They're good at corner. They're good at safety. So Jordan Hicks, by the way, is their middle linebacker. JOK is one of their outside linebackers. So you're right, man. This is a well put together team. I know they feel it when Denzel Ward is healthy. He's one of the top 3 or 4 corners in the league. It's been a challenge for him with injuries, but it's a really good. You're right, man. This is you nailed it, man. This team, if everybody's healthy, and I get it, it's an if. If Watson's playing well, good luck, man. They can push anybody.
They're a tough physical team. They have been since Schwartz got, and Kevin Stefanski offensively. They can pound the ball on you too. And if Nick Chubb is even, again, it's one of those ifs, but if Nick Chubb's 75% of what he was, he's still pretty. I mean, to me, he was the best running back in the league before he got hurt. But so we'll see what he's like. But this is a tough physical team. It's built to play in Cleveland, cold weather, and contend with the AFC North teams. And they can play some bully ball. You're right. It's funny that Myles Garrett can have 14 sacks and win Defensive Player of the Year. Right, I think he was Defensive Player of the Year, and it's sort of
I'm
like,
not sure what he is, but they felt
like he'd get more sacks, but no, he was a beast anyway.
They said he was his best all around year versus the run. I mean, they just felt that he just did so. I mean, the pressure rate was absurd. And there's a kid named named Alex Wright, number 91, who I know they're very high on. He's a third rounder. He doesn't play a lot because you got the 2 vets. But this is a well put together team here, and they've got depth if everybody's healthy. They got Rodney McLeod. I remember seeing Rodney in the Super Bowl. He wasn't lying. He said, I want to play one more year," and he's back again with Jim Schwartz for a second year. So this is a really fun matchup. Now, if Watson's playing poorly, then this game won't be close because bad quarterback play, it's hard to overcome that. And he's not played good quarterback since 2020.
No, but I tell you what, if Winston, remember how I was saying I thought Winston would be a good backup for the Eagles if he became available.
Yeah.
You put him in that team and get him a little disciplined. I mean, he's got weapons. But either way, yeah, good team, should be an exciting matchup. Which brings us to the next week 7 at New York. Maybe not as exciting, except for the fact that it's a division game.
Divisional, finally. Yeah, geez.
Yeah, finally. First division game. Now, as far as changes, you still have the head coach, still have the same offensive coordinator, but you have a major change of defensive coordinator. And,
Totally.
I don't know if that's a good thing for the Giants. I thought Wink Martindale was pretty tough, but obviously the water was kind of brackish there in New York. And it didn't work out. So now they've got Shane Bowen. He was with the Patriots or the Titans? I forget.
Titans, but he's a Vrabel disciple. They were together with the Texans and brought him over. So they're going to run a 34, but it's going to be the Patriots 34, which is a lot of disguise, late movement, not a lot of blitzing. But one of the things, we'll start with their defense first. One of the things they had to do is get more edge rushers. Cosell nailed this one. Thibodeau's numbers are. He's a nice player. He's got some stiffness. He's not explosive. He's long, not a great edge rusher. And they brought Brian Burns in, who's a really good edge rusher, who they made the trade for, and they gave him an extension. So that'll help them. There's no question that'll help them. They needed it. They couldn't go forward without another edge rusher. The corner-wise, they're not very good. Deontay Banks is okay, first rounder last year. They got to get through, figure out how is Drew Phillips, the rookie, going to play. Darnay Holmes got benched as their nickel last year. He's back, though, which is interesting. Surprised they brought him back. Who's talented. He just hasn't got the job. Jalen Mills is brought over from New England. Tyler Newman was their second-round safety. So they're feeling better about their secondary. It's still very, very beatable. Cordell Flott is another guy who's been there this is his third year. Nick McLeod was claimed off waivers years ago from the Bills, who's a thin quarterback, not real physical. So to me, this is a team you're certainly going to be able to throw against. They're really good with Bobby Okereke, middle linebacker.
Yep.
Again, they're going to run a 34. Dexter Lawrence up front is great. They brought over Jordan Phillips from the Bills. So overall, it's a beatable defense. And again, there's some mystery because they're changing the as you were talking about, the philosophy is completely different. So it's, again, you have it. They don't know how Bowen's going to call this defense because they know it's a 34 and they know his history. But he hasn't coached these players, so he's got to figure out what they do.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no question, Adam, when you look at their defense, that the arrow is starting to trend. Brian Burns is one of the best pass rushers in the league. Dexter Lawrence is already an all-pro. Thibodeau is a nice number 3 in your 4-man if we're doing the pecking order. They still have Ojulari. Aziz Ojulari can give you a little bit of length. I mean, and I like Okereke as a linebacker. I think that they can be a pretty good defense and ease up the back end because of that front 7. But to me, like, they need the offense to be compatible to give them a break in order for them to be successful. And when I look at the offense as we transfer over there, I just don't, yes, they drafted Malik Neighbors. He can make a big difference. He gives them explosion. Wan'Dale Robinson in year 3 maybe, emerges as a really nice slot receiver, but they still have issues on the right side and middle of their offensive line. They still don't have much of a running game that, Devin Singletary's okay. And obviously the quarterback's a big question mark. So, if you told me that the Giants were going to be a lot better offensively this year than we all imagined, then I'm like, okay, then maybe you're talking about a team that can make the playoffs. But if you're telling me that it's more of the same offensively, even with the addition of Neighbors, then I'm saying the Giants don't scare me that much.
Yeah, so they do have speed with Jalen Hyatt and Darius Slayton, no question about that. Allen Robinson comes over there as just a backup possession receiver. They've completely redone their offensive line. They're going to have 2 new guards. Jermaine Illuminor, who I met at the Super Bowl, he fits in much better at right tackle, I think. And Evan Neal, there was talk he might go into guard. One way or the other, Illuminor is going to start at right guard or right tackle. John Michael Schmitz is back to the center. John Runyon Jr. signed a big deal He'll be their left guard. So they're going to probably have 3 changes this season.
I was
So
the Illuminor signing really was funny. He's from North Jersey, if people
okay.
don't know. So I think he grew up a Giants fan. But if you were
Oh, is that right?
if you were following his Twitter account anytime after he signed, he was. I was joking with some friends, like he was the most excited person to sign with the Giants in the last 10 years. All right, because
Really?
most people are just signing with the Giants because they're getting offered a lot of money. They
Oh,
they know who the Giants were. This guy was like, I can't believe I'm a
good
Giant.
for
This
him.
is the most amazing. I know it's great for him, but it's kind of like if you're cynical and you realize how bad the Giants have been for the last 5
I
or
know.
6 years, it's funny to see somebody so happy to be a Giant.
So a couple more quickies here. So yeah, you're right. Devin Singletary did a great job for the Texans, but he's not explosive at all. He's a more sustaining back.
Right.
Look for Tyrone Tracy. He was a 5th rounder out of Purdue to push for a role because they don't know who their number 2 or number 3s will be at running back. They need some juice in that run game. Daniel Jones coming off of ACL reconstruction. Drew Lock's his backup. They got problems there. Darren Waller's, I mean, everyone I've talked to thinks he's going to retire, but he hasn't announced that yet. Jack Stoll is going to be their backup Y tight end. Theo Johnson from Penn State, we see when I saw at the Senior Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
A tight end who could run a little bit, is a big guy.
Mm-hmm.
See how they use him. It's looking better because they got Malik Neighbors, but he's not really an X receiver. He's more of a move receiver. The way I heard it is he's not an X receiver because he's not your stationary outside receiver. You need to move him because he doesn't have the biggest frame in the world, but he's great running after the catch. He's super gifted. They've got depth at receiver. They have guys who could run, but they don't have your typical number 1 receiver. They're going to be better because they've addressed the offensive line finally. But this is a game the Eagles, I would think they'll be like, where's this game? Where's this game in Philly?
It's in New York. No, it's in New York. Yeah.
Eagles have to
Or
be a
New
5 or
Jersey.
6 point favorite coming.
Yeah, I would think so. I don't know if the days of waxing the Giants by 20 to 30 points are still. I mean, they lost to the Giants last year in the second game, which I'd forgotten all about when we did our last podcast.
Hammered.
I said they went 4-0. No, they lost badly. Again, you throw that out. I do think these will be a little bit more competitive like they were a couple of years ago in Jalen Hurts' first year, but talent for talent, the Eagles are still a way better team. So I agree with you. They probably should be a 5 to 7 point favorite over the Giants. Week 8 is a matchup we're all going to anticipate.
Mm-hmm.
They go to Cincinnati. They play the Bengals. It is a 4:25 p.m. game. And look, as an objective observer, I hope that Joe Burrow is healthy and Joe Burrow-ish because that would make this a really good matchup in general. Now, they did lose the Bengals. They lost their offensive coordinator. He got hired by the Titans, right, to be their head coach.
Brian Callahan.
Brian Callahan.
Right. Zach
But
Taylor
their head coach is an offensive head coach. He is.
Yeah, he calls the plays. Zach Taylor calls the plays. But here's why it's important, though, because Brian Callahan was pretty close to Burrow. Now, Dan Pitcher, who was their quarterback's coach, is one of the better quarterback coaches in the league. He's now the OC. So they'll keep that relationship going. We'll get to Lou Anarumo, their defense coordinator. And Darren Simmons, by the way, is a really good special teams coach. He's been there a long time, but they've got problems at tight end. Drew Sample was really overdrafted in 2019 as a second rounder. He's a wide tight end. You don't draft wide tight ends in the second round. I remember when he was taken, the GM told me, then his team had a 5 on him, and he goes, because he can block, he didn't think he could catch real well.
Oh boy.
It's turned out to be the case. But they signed Mike Gesicki as their move tight end. He's been a disappointment. I don't know why the Dolphins 2 years ago used their franchise tag on him. That was a mistake. So look, they lost Tyler Boyd, their number 3 receiver. Jermaine Burton figures to be that guy. I know Trent Irwin, who's been there for a long time, could probably be it, but they did draft Jermaine Burton in the 3rd round, and Yusuvis, the receiver from Princeton. But Burton figures to be their 3rd receiver and probably take over for T. Higgins, who's their franchise player who has not gotten his extension. So if he walks, Burton will replace him in starting lineup. Remember, they traded Joe Mixon and they signed Zach Moss to be their starter. Moss is a good backup, but to be their starter, that's questionable to me.
I think that Chase Brown, who had a nice little finish for them, might be a guy that emerges. This is Sidney Brown's twin brother, right? They both played together at Illinois. This is a guy who can catch the ball pretty well, runs pretty well. I wouldn't be surprised if he overtakes Zach by the end of the year. We'll see.
Got some juice, and Zach Moss does not. So their offensive line is very average, very beatable.
But
They hadn't gathered
enormous, right? There is there going to be a bigger offense? I
pretty big, I
mean,
know.
Amarius Mims gets drafted. We spent like a whole episode with Greg Cosell talking about how gigantic of a man Amarius Mims is, despite limited starts, right? And he joins a team where he is third as far as bigness. I mean, Trent Brown's enormous, and Zeus Brown's enormous. Orlando Brown Jr. is
Yep.
enormous. How do you draft Amarius Mims and call him your third largest offensive?
It's crazy. And he's going to play right tackle for now because Orlando Brown is their left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
They got Ted Karras, who's been around for a while, and Alex Cappa coming from the Bucs. They're just okay. They're still not great. So they're definitely beatable. But look, if they protect Burrow, as you said, assuming he's healthy, Jamar Chase is an absolute superstar. He's amazing, great football player. So you're right. This is a fun game. This is a fun game in Week 8 and then again, this is on the road at the Bengals here.
Yeah, and again with the defense, you don't look and see a whole lot of splashy names. Obviously, the okay up front with Sheldon Rankins and BJ Hill. Trey Hendrickson's the big name. He has said he wants out, but until he's out, he's there. Good luck to him. But they've always been the one thing they struggled with last year is a little bit of giving up explosive plays, but they brought back Von Bell and then they signed Geno Stone, who had such a good year with the Ravens. So you expect they'll be a little bit better there. But they've always been for the last few years, right? The sum of the whole is, I forget the expression. They're more of a sum team than the individual parts team. Cam Taylor is not a bad corner, but again, they're not like blessed that you don't see all these guys in the Pro Bowl, but they play good, solid, together, cohesive defense under Lou Anarumo.
Yeah, Cam Taylor-Britt's really good. He's their best corner, and DJ Turner now will be a full-time starter.
Mm-hmm.
He went over to the Titans signing a free agent deal. Mike Hilton's one of the better nickels. And he is really like, when you say nickel, sometimes it's misleading because just because you're a nickel corner doesn't mean you play inside. Just depends on the team and how they use the player. But he's definitely an inside corner who, by the way, could blitz pretty well. So yeah, they've got talent here. And Dax Hill now is moving. I think he's going to play some corner. Is the word coming out of Cincinnati. Logan Wilson's really good with Jermaine Pratt is back.
Yeah.
So this is a talented defense under Lou Anarumo. It was a great story. He was like, the year he was hired as defensive coordinator, he was like their fourth or fifth choice. It wound up being their best choice. Good for him. Good story.
Yeah. So what do you see? Do you see this as a coin flip game, or the Bengals should be a little bit of favorite? If Burrow's healthy, they probably are a 3-point favorite. I would think the Bengals, as long as
I think it's very even.
Yeah.
I think this is a fun game. Chase versus AJ Brown. You know what I mean? And T. Higgins, obviously, Higgins had hamstring problems last season. This is a coin flip game, man. This is, man, when you talk about the schedule, this is one I can't wait. If you like offense, they should have an offense of mindset game.
There you go. All right, we'll finish it out with their game the following week. It is at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars, prime time, Sunday, 8:20. I'm telling you, I'm just not fired up about the Jaguars this year. Every year, I know everybody gets excited like a healthy Trevor Lawrence, and they add a name like they did in the draft with Brian Thomas, who I think will fit what they want to do. They have some good names. They've made some good additions, but for whatever reason, Adam, I don't. They are going to have a major scheme change on defense. And Ryan Nielsen, you mentioned him earlier. He's considered a pretty good defensive mind. But I don't know. This team doesn't move the needle for me.
Let's start on offense, and man, the local the fans in Duval have crushed Press Taylor. I mean, they wanted him out. Doug Peterson handed over the play calling. They blame him for Trevor Lawrence's regression. Probably not fair, but hey, Trevor Lawrence also, by the way, was dealing with a bunch of injuries.
Oh, he was really beat up last year, Adam. Really
too many turnovers. Yeah, too many turnovers. So they have Gabe Davis, who was reunited with Chad Hall, who was the receivers coach in Buffalo. You mentioned Brian Thomas, Christian Kirk, who had the groin surgery last season. He's back as their slot. They're all 11 personnel. They run a West Coast spread. Devin Duvernay will be the punt returner, two-time Pro Bowl punt returner, and he'll be their backup slot, where they weren't really good there when Kirk got hurt. Evan Ingram's back, who's an athletic slot tight end. Their offensive line's really good, by the way. Really good. They bring in Mitch Morse as their center, where they struggled last season with Luke Fortner.
I like Mitch Morse a lot. He's a good player when healthy.
Good player, man. Yep.
Yeah.
Bill's cut him.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Sheriff's back. We know about his injury history, but he's pretty good. And ETN's back as the running back, who had a big year, by the way.
After a rough start, he wound up exploding, right? Last week of September and October, he really came into his own and started to find the good player.
Remember, I'm just gonna say he missed the year before due to the Lisfranc injury.
Right.
So he missed all of 22 and did well. Look, again, they're gonna spread the Eagles out. It's what you do. You see if they can handle it. Now the other thing we haven't talked enough about, we're not gonna know until we get a better handle on, although Clint Hurtt's a phenomenal defensive line coach. I'm expecting the Eagles run defense to not start the season like they closed it last year where they were terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So I would expect them to, because Etienne's more of a explosive back. He's not really a power back. So I would think that they should be able to handle the run. It's just because you know what you're getting with Jacksonville, their spread, and where the Eagles can handle that.
Yeah, I would agree with you on there. Defensively, interesting mix of names, right? Ronald Darby had that nice year.
Yeah.
Baltimore, he comes over. They have good linebackers with Lloyd and Foy. How do you pronounce it? Oluokun. Oluokun. We'll just go with that.
Oluokun. Yeah.
Oluokun. Right. Josh Allen, very good pass rusher. I like Andre Sisco as a safety. He had that interception against the Eagles. They bring over Darnell Savage. Again, it's like I recognize all these names, and theoretically on paper, it looks like a team that should at least challenge for the AFC South there. But I don't know. I don't trust it.
Yeah, a couple things. The Eagles actually they tried to sign Darnell Savage when they missed out on McKinney, but
Right.
they were in it for him. But he went to the Jags. They got hosed at corner last season because Tyson Campbell is their best corner, number 32, got hurt, and they just went through a bunch of guys. It just didn't work. Monteric, Buster Brown, number 30, didn't work out. That. So they, as you mentioned, they signed Ronald Darby, who will start opposite Campbell. They're not deep at corner, outside corner. That helps them. So that's another team I would spread out. And the Eagles could do that again at wide receiver because they've got Campbell, they've got Parker. We'll see how these guys do if they could stay healthy. Eric Armstead comes over, cut by the Niners.
Mm-hmm.
With Roy Robertson Harris, has been a really good story of development. Trayvon Walker, who's a good pass rusher. He's not elite, but he's been kind of up and down, but he's got talent. They're not deep at all at edge rusher group. They are not. They don't have any depth at all. So that's that. We'll see if they could stay healthy there. So this is a fun game. I get it. They don't have a lot of juice. Remember, they shocked the world 2 years ago, and then they had the awful finish where they choked and didn't make the playoffs. They lost their final 5 out of 6. And what happened is Mike Caldwell and his defensive staff got fired because their finger was pointed at their defensive staff, and that it didn't go over well. So they made a change there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, that's going to do it for the first half of the schedule. Next week, we get into Washington, Dallas, and, of course, the rest of the non-division opponents as we finish it up. I really enjoy this stuff. I always like going into the new schemes, the new coaching changes, and what it means for the Eagles. And next show, maybe we'll have a little bit coming out of OTAs as well. Andrew DeCecco will have some stuff on InsideTheBirds.com. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds. Be sure to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation.